Good evening, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back for your third and final video blog of the night for Tuesday, December 30th, 2014, around 8:26 p.m. in Billerica, Massachusetts. Cold out. It's only about 20 out right now. Going to go to the teens for lows. Tomorrow we might not reach above freezing for the final day of 2014. And the temperature will moderate for the rest of the week. Could get a burst of snow Saturday night, but it's supposed to change to rain, but back into a deep freeze on Monday. No big snowstorms in sight, but there'll be some sooner or later that pop up when you least expect it. And that's about it on that. There's no news to report for right now. So on to my third and final video blog of the night, the personality profile. This week I've been doing personality profiles of famous French-Canadian professional wrestlers, and the one I'm doing tonight is about the hands of stone, rugged Ronnie Garvin. Ronnie Garvin was a professional wrestler who wrestled over 30 years in the world of sports entertainment. He was known for his time in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling / Jim Clark Promotions / NWA. Ronnie Garvin's famous for holding the NWA World Championship for 2 months in 1987. Ronnie Garvin was born in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. His real name is Roger Barnes, and he started his professional wrestling career in 1962. He was trained by fellow Quebecian Pat Patterson, WWE Hall of Fame, the first Intercontinental Champion and stooge to Mr. McMahon. And Roger Burns took the name Ronnie Garvin, and he teamed up with a fellow French-Canadian called Terry Joyal, and they were billed as the Garvin brothers. They weren't related at all, and the Garvin brothers were a legendary tag team in the 60s and 70s. They teamed in Canada and several regional U.S. territories, won several regional tag team championships, and towards the 70s, they got a manager, Jimmy Garvin, their brother, but Jimmy Garvin wasn't related to Terry at all, but Jimmy's and Ronnie were once related. Ronnie is Jimmy Garvin's stepfather, so they're related. And they continued the tag team into the mid-70s while the team was broken up, and Ronnie Garvin became a single star in several regional territories in the southeastern United States. He wrestled in Southeastern Championship Wrestling for many years. He actually he beat Andre the Giant at a house show on Southeastern Championship Wrestling, but that's not acknowledged at all. And also, Ronnie Garvin wrestled in the ICW, the Renegade promotion, run by Angelo Poffo, and Ronnie Garvin had feuds with Macho Man Randy Savage, Cowboy Bob Orton, and a few others. In 1983, Ronnie Garvin went to Georgia Championship Wrestling and got the nickname the Hand of Stone, and this was his first time he was shown on national television as a top superstar. He feuded with Jake the Snake Roberts over the National Heavyweight Championship, also known as the Georgia Television Championship, and Ronnie Garvin and Jake the Snake Roberts had a legendary feud over that belt. The belt changed hands 5 different times between Ronnie Garvin and Jake the Snake Roberts. It was a great feud, probably one of the great feuds of all time for Georgia Championship Wrestling. This developed Jake the Snake Roberts to be a major star in the professional wrestling industry, and it also made Ronnie Garvin a household name in national, being a national star. 1985, Ronnie Garvin goes to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Jim Clark Promotions, NWA, and he has some legendary feuds with Tully Blanchard. They had some great tape fist match, Black Bart, Big Bubba Rogers, and also a few others. In late 1986, Ronnie Garvin teams with Barry Windham, and they become the United States Tag Team Champions, and they held on to that title for over 6 months. They feuded with the Midnight Express. One time during a match in February 1987, when the Midnight Express were wrestling Windham and and Garvin, Jim Cornette, the Midnight Express manager, throws a fireball into the face of Ronnie Garvin. It shocks the world. It even shocks Jimmy Garvin, who was a heel at the time in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions, and Jimmy Garvin turns face. Amazing. And this was to get, and Jim Cornette was suspended from the NWA for a few months, but in reality he needed time off because he was going on his honeymoon. Eventually Wyndham and Garvin dropped the United States Tag Team Championship, but Garvin goes on to a bigger feud. He goes on to a feud with Nature Boy Ric Flair over the NWA World Championship. It started at the Great American Bash 1987 between Jimmy Garvin and Ric Flair, and it was a stipulation for the NWA World Championship. If Jimmy Garvin won, he would be NWA World Championship, but if Ric Flair won, he would go out on a date with Precious. Precious was Jimmy Garvin's valet in real life. They were married in real life. Precious's real name is Patty. And Ric Flair won the match. And they show videotape of Ric Flair getting on the prepared for the date with Precious. But when Precious comes in, Precious slaps Ric Flair, and it wasn't Precious. It was Ronnie Garvin dressed in drag. Ronnie Garvin did that dressed in drag a couple of other times as Miss Atlanta Lively in 1985 when he was associated with the Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant, and that when Jimmy Valiant was filled in with the Midnight Express and Jim Cornette. And this sets up a feud between Flair and Ronnie Garvin over the NWA World Championship. They have several great matches and stuff. At a house show in Detroit, Michigan, in a steel cage in September of 1987, Ronnie Garvin pins Ric Flair with the sunset flip to win the NWA World Championship. And Ronnie Garvin holds the NWA World Championship for 2 months. He defended it very few times. But Ric Flair regained it at Starrcade 87. And even though Ric Flair was the heel, Ronnie Garvin was the face, the majority of the crowd was cheering for Ric Flair. And I don't know why they did this title switch for. I think maybe they gave the NWA World Championship to Ronnie Garvin because of his years of service in the business. Maybe it was just a salute to him. But he was one of the worst world champions of all time. Ronnie Garvin, after that, gets de-pushed in the NWA, but he's not featured prominently. But in July of 1988, Ronnie Garvin turns heel on the American Dream Dusty Rhodes during a U.S. title match Dusty Rhodes had with Barry Windham at the Great American Bash in 1988. And the fans were cheering for Ronnie Garvin when he knocked out Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes was one of the most popular wrestlers in Jim Crockett Promotions at the time, and the fans were cheering him. I think a lot of fans started to dislike Dusty Rhodes in 1988 and stuff like that, and that's why we're cheering Ronnie Garvin. Ronnie Garvin got Playboy Gary Hart as his manager, but this was short-lived, as Ronnie Garvin left the NWA about a couple of months later after a dispute with Dusty Rhodes over the creative ideas of how Ronnie Garvin's heel turn was going to go. And then Ronnie Garvin, and the rest of 1988, Ronnie Garvin goes to WWC in Puerto Rico, feuds with Carlos Colon over the Universal title, which was the Puerto Rican world title. Ronnie Garvin wins it, but he loses back to Carlos Colon later on in the year. Ronnie Garvin goes to the AWA, fused with Greg Gagne over the TV title. Ronnie Garvin wins the TV title, but a few weeks later, Greg Gagne wins the television title. And in 1989, Ronnie Garvin signs with the WWE, and he is known as Rugged Ronnie Garvin. He was a mid-carder at best. He had a few feuds there. He lost to Dino Bravo at WrestleMania 5, but afterwards, Rugged Ronnie Garvin knocks out Dino Bravo's manager, Frenchie Martin, and Frenchie Martin's written off of television. And then Ronnie Garvin's most famous feud in the WWE was against Greg the Hammer Valentine, and this was a long feud was a good mid-card feud because Greg the Hammer Valentine wasn't doing too much in the WWE after the Dream Team broke up. He wasn't doing anything, and this was a good mid-card feud on an episode of Superstars of Wrestling. Ronnie Garvin beats Greg Valentine in a match after Valentine was dominating the match, but the next week, Greg the Hammer Valentine challenges Ronnie Garvin to a retirement match, and they have a good match on it, but Valentine wins it and retires Ronnie Garvin. But a couple weeks later, when Greg Valentine was doing a promo, Ronnie Garvin comes up as a referee, and this angle was played out for the next 3 months. Ronnie Garvin becoming a referee, and he was a reverse Danny Davis type. He was favoring the faces, especially against the heels like Dino Bravo, the Brooklyn Brawler, Widowmaker Barry Windham, and Greg the Hammer Valentine. It came to a head when Ronnie Garvin caused Greg Valentine to lose a match to Superfly Jimmy Snuka on Saturday night's main event. WWE President Jack Tunney suspended Ronnie Garvin for life as a referee, but reinstated him as a wrestler, and the feud continues with him and Greg the Hammer Valentine at SummerSlam 89, when Ronnie Garvin was a special green announcer for Greg the Hammer Valentine's match with Hercules. Valentine wins the match by cheating on Hercules, and Ronnie Garvin announces Hercules the winner. This was very funny in my opinion. It was just to have Ronnie Garvin and Greg the Hammer Valentine doing something. It was a nice little mid-card feud, and this continues on for several more months. Greg the Hammer Valentine at this time had a shin guard to protect supposedly an injured shin bone, but he used it for added leverage when he put the figure 4 leg lock. It was kind of a late 80s version of the similar to Cowboy Bob Orton when he had the cast for many years. This was the leg version of it with Greg the Hammer Valentine, and after a while, Ronnie Garvin gets his own shin protector, and this feud continues. It comes to a head at Royal Rumble 1990, where Greg the Hammer Valentine wrestles Ronnie Garvin in a submission match. The only way to win if Greg the Hammer Valentine puts Ronnie Garvin in the figure 4 leg lock, or Ronnie Garvin puts Greg the Hammer Valentine in a submission match. And this was a great match, and both of the wrestlers used their shin protections as weapons and stuff, but eventually Ronnie Garvin hits Greg the Hammer Valentine with his own shin guard, knocks him out, and puts him in the sharpshooter. It wasn't called the sharpshooter like that back then, and Ronnie Garvin makes Greg Valentine submit because Greg Valentine was out cold. This was kind of a hidden gem for the Royal Rumble 1990. A pretty good match, and that was about it for Ronnie Garvin's WWE career, because afterwards he was de-pushed. He became a jobber to the Stars. There was proposed feuds he was going to have with the model Mark Tell. They actually had a couple of interview segments on that for a possible feud that could have been at SummerSlam 1990, but it was scrapped. And by early 1991, Ronnie Garvin left the WWE and went back to wrestling independent for several years. He eventually retired from professional wrestling. Rugged Ronnie Garvin, Hands of Stone Ronnie Garvin's loves to fly. He was one time he flew airplanes for cargo and other stuff, licensed pilot, and he actually owns a lot of car dealerships, used car dealerships in North Carolina. That's where he settled and stuff like that. Rugged Ronnie Garvin is probably a great career, very, very underrated and stuff like that. He was a solid worker and stuff like that, but his world title reign in 1987 for the NWA was kind of pointless in my opinion and stuff like that, and his WWE career wasn't as spectacular. It was just a mid-card. He just had a mid-card feud with Greg the Hammer Valentine. I think that mid-card feud was kind of pretty good in my opinion. It's something that that would be just to establish Ronnie Garvin to the WWE crowd, and probably to get Greg the Hammer Valentine on television still, because Hammer was a great heel for many years, but after, I told you, when the Dream Team broke up, his career was a state of flux and stuff, but that was a good way to get on television, stuff like that. I don't know if Rugged Ronnie Garvin or Hands of Stone Ronnie Garvin is going to be in the Hall of Fame, but it could happen. You never know. That's about it. Facebook friends and YouTube followers. I'll be back tomorrow with 3 more video blogs. First video blog tomorrow will be about the top 10 players in Chicago White Sox history, and then the second video blog will be my predictions on wild card weekend games of the NFL 2015, and the third and final video blog of the night will be about the last of this series of personality profiles of French Canadian wrestlers, Jacques Rougeau, aka the Mountie. And don't forget, Facebook friends and YouTube followers, more video blogs in 2015, and coming January 12th, 13 days of me revealing the first 13 WWE Royal Rumbles from 1988 to 2000. It's time for the Rumble. It's time for the Royal Rumble. And it will happen. And don't forget, Julie Broughton's video blog and Heidi Pratt's video blog are coming soon. Good night, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. Bye now.